If only there was a simple way to improve the performance of any team, or indeed any individual team member. There is. That's the good news. I'm Andrew Laurie from BGB, and I'm going to talk about the most straightforward diagnostic tool for improving the performance of a team or an individual team member. What we're talking about here is a way to diagnose where the gap is, what it is that's maybe producing less than optimal results, or indeed even for someone doing pretty well. Quickly identifying where they can improve or where you collectively can work better to make sure they're performing at their best. Now it's diagnostic and prescriptive in a sense. It will identify gaps and it will also guide you to something you can do about it. From my experience, when people aren't doing well, when your team aren't doing well collectively, or when an individual team member isn't doing well, it usually actually comes down to just a couple of things. We can overcomplicate it easily, and many people do. We can get desperately analytical. There are so many things that go into how someone performs, our leadership included, their performance included. There is so much I'm sure much of it's valid. But let's see if we can't find something to do quickly that within 5 or 10 minutes, you'll be able to form a clear view of here is something I can do to get better out of them. What we're talking about is actually 3 things. Again, going back to the experience I've had, and I suspect most people have had, one way or the other, when someone isn't performing well, it's often said that it has to be one of 2 things. Either they don't know how to, or they're not motivated to. They don't really care. Now, actually, there's a third. So I'm keeping these 2. One of the reasons someone won't be performing well or a team won't be performing well is they haven't got the skill to do it. So we can talk about that and we can address that. Second reason might be they're not motivated to. They don't really care. So fine, they know how to do it. It's an easy thing, but they don't really get it, why it's important, or they don't care why it's important. The third reason is clarity. Is it actually clear to them, really clear to them, what it is they need to do? So let's go through the 3. Because when it comes down to it, you can very quickly look at someone and have a quick hit at, they're not performing well. Is it skill, will, or clarity? So that's the highest level version of this. Actually, yeah, come to think of it, they haven't been trained in that new system. They haven't got exactly the right qualifications. I need to give them some coaching, some training. We need to upgrade their skills. Straightforward. Clarity is also pretty easy. I need to get better at briefing them. I need to get better at delegating, where I really lay out what's required, the outcome that's required, any parameters to work within, the time, when it's required, so on. Motivation is a more interesting one, but quickly you can usually see, actually, that person just doesn't seem to care. Great. So if we've done the diagnostic, let's talk about some of the things that you might address under these. In the end, we've got a 1-page rapid diagnostic tool for this that identifies for each of the 3, sort of the 5 most common or 5 most straightforward things you can do to remedy it. There are probably other things you can do as well, but for each of these 3, skill, will, clarity, for each of the 3, it identifies 5 things that you can do pretty easily, pretty quickly, that will help with it. So for example, if you decide that somebody isn't skilled in the level they need to be, you can always check in. It might be you recruited the wrong person, by the way. Have they actually got the basic qualifications or the basic experience they would need for the job? That isn't usually the problem, because usually people do recruit appropriately qualified people. You start looking at things like, what's our schedule of training? Do we have regular intentional training with them every week or 2 where we're addressing the right things? You look at things like feedback. How quickly are they receiving feedback, good and bad? When they do a good job, affirmative feedback. When they need to adjust their output or how they operate, how quickly and effectively are they getting that feedback? Do they all have development plans? Is there a clear development plan that says, this is what I'm doing as a team member to achieve a certain level or to progress a certain skill? Those are the sorts of things you can look at. Now, if we're talking about clarity, equally, I think this is fairly straightforward. How clear are their position commitments? Do they have clear, documented accountabilities, responsibilities? Let's go ahead a step further. Do they have very specific goals? Most people use the SMART goal acronym. You know, it's specific, measurable, achievable. It's a result, an outcome, and it's time scaled. Do they have those in place? Are there clear KPIs? Are we monitoring and picking up quickly if something's going well, or indeed if something needs adjusting? How clear are their 90-day plans? How clearly do they know this week this is where I need to be to get on track? These sorts of things all contribute to they're very clear on what they need to do, how to do it, when to do it by, and so on. The last part is motivation. We've talked about getting the skill right. We've talked about getting them really clear on what's required. We've got to make sure they've got the will to do it as well. Now that can be a few different things. You can do simple things like ensuring that your team members are in roles where for most of the time, not all of the time, but for most of the time, they're playing to their strengths. People will make more progress, they'll achieve more, and they'll just be more motivated. They enjoy playing, doing things that they're good at. Not all the time, inevitably they'll have some development, but majority of the time they want to be playing to their strengths. Do you all feel like you're working for or towards something bigger than you, bigger than your team? Now, often this might take the form of the vision of the business or the purpose of the business. What is it that you're all going for? Beyond just, great, I'm going to turn up because I need to get a salary, I need to earn money, but why are they turning up? Understanding why they're doing what they're doing is really important. Having line of sight between the work I do and this bigger, broader outcome. Understanding the contribution I make to it is really important from a motivation perspective. The other one that's pretty easy, I suppose, brightness of future. We talk about everyone should have some clear path to a brighter future. And now in some cases, in some businesses, that might mean I can see over the next couple of years, if I make this progress, I could achieve that promotion. I could get that raise. I could move into that new department. What is it that they're working towards? It doesn't have to be a promotion or a different role, but what is it that they've got to look forward to, that they're working towards? That's motivating for people. And perhaps the most common, the single most important factor in motivating people, statistically at least, recognition. How frequently and in how many different ways are people getting recognised for good work? Now, I'd go as far as to say rewarded as well. The rewards can take lots of different forms, but if people are getting frequently recognised, that typically is good for their motivation. These are just a few ideas. In the end, if you can look quickly at any of your team member or indeed the team as a whole and ask yourself, for any gap in performance or any improvement I'd like in performance, do I need to upgrade their skills? Do I need to get clearer about what they need to do? Or do I need to find ways of getting them a bit more energized, a bit more motivated? That's it. Skill, clarity, and will. Those are the three things that you can shift. Now, if this sounds interesting to you and if you think, for example, if you want to have a look at that diagnostic, that rapid diagnostic tool I mentioned, that's really easy. We're happy to send it out. So just get in contact with one of the team. More than happy to explore this further. In the meantime, good luck with the team. All the best.